6th on Nantucket. And as a preliminary matter, our former chair, Ashley Erisman, was not reappointed last week. So as vice chair, I'm taking her place to begin this meeting this evening. On Nantucket. And permit me to remember, excuse me, can you mute? Can everybody mute, please? And permit me to confirm that all members who are present can be heard. So members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mark Beal. Here. Seth Engelborg. Here. Mike Mazzarelli. Is Mike disappeared on us?
He's there.
Okay. So
sorry, my computer, I was having technical difficulties with my computer, but I am here on my phone.
Great. Joe Plandowski.
Here.
Linda Williams.
Here.
And Tim Brain, our new member, has already informed us that he can't attend this week to a prior commitment. This meeting is being held entirely remotely, so all participants are participating via Zoom. The public may participate via YouTube. There are directions on the Times website as to how they can join. If anybody wishes to speak, please raise your hand either in your camera window or virtually and wait to be recognized by the acting chair. Please state your name and any relationship you might have to the project before speaking. Please keep your device muted when you're not speaking so that they're not picked up by the recording or creating a distraction. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendants are participating via video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that others may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. We'll start the meeting with public meeting, and the first order of business is election of officers. Do I hear proposals for the positions of chair and vice chair?
Mr. Chairman,
Actually, excuse me, Mr. Beal.
I'm
You're
raising my
muted.
hand, Mr. Chairman, as a point of order.
Excuse me, Linda. Mark Beal had his hand up first. Yes, Mark? You're muted, Mark.
Sorry, I nominate Ian Golding as chair of the Conservation Commission and Seth Engelborg as vice chair.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
So for those who wish to vote in the affirmative, Mark Beal,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Opposed?
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams.
Opposed.
So that is 4-2 for Mr. Beal's proposal. So on public comment on items not being heard this evening, is there any public comment? Spruce, Mr. Balkind?
Yes, Burton Balkind. I had a couple of questions about enforcement orders, and maybe to Jeff through you, Mr. Chair. I was wondering about 1 Mothball Lane. Is that going to be on in the enforcement or that part of the meeting?
And Jeff?
Sure. I apologize. We'll probably be taking that one up at the next meeting. I've been trying to get caught up on a number of things, just haven't had a chance. I'm assuming, Bruce, that's the house at I believe the actual address is 289 Hummock Pond Road, the one that's up on Cribbing.
No. This is the one that is that had the snow fence put up on front of it, in front of their property, that I sent you drone pictures a few weeks ago, and there was, I think, an enforcement order at the last meeting to ask them to take it down.
Yes. Give me a second to look into that. And I'll get right back to everybody.
Yeah, and if not, and if you could, if it's not covered, maybe a time for me to, at some point to just ask a couple of questions. And then the other question I had was about, I'm pretty sure 79 Baxter Road is going to be covered today, correct?
We'll have an update on 79 Baxter Road during the regular enforcement section at the end.
Excellent. And then the only other thing I'd like to add, if it's all right, Mr. Chair, is just a comment that I'd like to ask all participating commission members if they're able to turn on their camera, and in any case, if any participants also, if they're able to turn on the camera, it just makes for better governance and a little bit more transparency. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Spruce. Deanne, did you have your hand up?
I did, Ian. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. I don't know how to turn my video on. Anyhow, I lowered my hand because my question was going to be about whether the situation at 79 was going to be discussed, and the video that we submitted to you on June 26th that we received from a member of the public. But I understand, Jeff, you are going to be addressing that later in the meeting.
Certainly, or I'm happy to address it now if that's the board's liking to bring it up now, if you guys prefer.
Does anybody object on the commission to talking about it now? So Jeff, please go ahead.
Sure. So our office received a copy of the video in question. I feel like most people have probably seen it now, of someone doing work on the beach in the Wisconsin area. There was a kind of a small skid steer plus a kind of a backhoe that was on the beach that was working. We did get that video. We've been out on site a couple times since it's been going on. We were able to determine that it was work that was happening in the area, just to confirm this for everybody, down in the 79 Baxter Road area that was there. From that area, we were able to go through. We had received notice that there was going to be some maintenance going on in that area, but it wasn't very well specified. So we've been kind of working and gathering some information from Sumco, who was doing that work, for their sand delivery schedule, how much sand was delivered, when it was delivered, and to kind of review what was happening with them, because I think appearances of it, obviously look like there was material that was on the beach in a pile that was being moved, and some of it was definitely being, manipulated by the backhoe. Unfortunately, we were out there when the video happened, but we're trying to put dates and times together to ensure what was happening, when it was happening, whether it was part of the maintenance activity that we've talked about before through enforcement actions on that property. If it was something outside that, I know there's some concern about where the water line was at the time. We're also trying to be sure that we're not dealing with a situation where, the observed water line and the jurisdictional water line are different by a bit. Sometimes they, the high tide line doesn't necessarily reflect what the jurisdictional boundary is for, the purposes of mean high water or Chapter 91 or any of those things. So we're trying to get all of that information together and get kind of a full report written up so we can take appropriate action with, I think, all of the information that we'll need to take that appropriate action. And I apologize that it's not done in front of this meeting or out for everyone to review, but between some staffing issues and the holiday, we just are a little behind in getting everything ready for today and dealing with all of those things. But we'll have more to come on this for sure, but we'll get it out and we'll get it up and posted for everyone to see. And if the commission needs to take action, that will certainly be our recommendation once we have all of the facts compiled.
Thank you, Jeff. Do you have anything to add, Spruce, that Jeff hasn't covered?
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a quick question. Is this property have a valid permit? There's been some question of whether they're operating under a valid permit or not, and if Jeff had looked into the valid permit part of that. Thank you.
Certainly. So that's something that we're definitely looking at, is they did have a permit at one time to construct and maintain those structures. And we're kind of in the ongoing maintenance of those structures. So we're making sure we've since, I think you were probably present for it. We've since also dealt with some of the maintenance activities with these guys through an enforcement action in like the last 24 months. And outlined kind of a procedure for them to follow for that. So we're kind of working through both of those to make sure that they're properly being followed. And make sure that they're still in compliance with that. And then again, if not, I think we're more than happy to recommend that if there's further action that the commission needs to take it with all the proper information in hand.
Thank you, Jeff. So moving on to public hearing notices of intent. The following are continued. The trustees of Reservation Cascada Cotu Wildlife Refuge continued to July 20th. Linda Loring Nature Foundation, 90 Eel Point Road, continued until September the 3rd. The Nantucket Conservation Foundation, West Hummock Pond, continued until September 28th. Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 65 and 67 Easton Street, continued to July the 20th. Hurd at 25 East Lincoln Avenue, continued until July 20th. 13 Aurora Way, LLC, 13 Aurora Way, continued until July 20th. Fogarty, 39 Monomoy Road, continued until July 20th. Nantucket Islands Land Bank, 321 Pulpus Road, continued until July 20th. Meisenberg, 30 Warwinet Road, continued until July 20th. And so Mark Ritz for Local Buoy Properties, LLC, 15 Loretta Lane.
Sorry, Ian, really quickly, we actually
Yeah.
received a continuance request for that to the 20th today as well.
Well, and so it goes. So then under amended orders of conditions, we have Doherty ACK LLC, 2 Mariners Way. Continued.
One more, we got a continuance for that today as well, for 7/20. We have no notices or amended orders, they've all been continued.
Okay. So I'll read out the 2 others. Johnston, 34 Eastern Street, continued until July 20th. Waterfront Pocomo LLC, 17 Loretta Lane, continued until July 20th. So on that note, minor mods. So there are no requests for determination of applicability. And for minor mods, we have 9B Crow's Nest LLC, 9B's Crow's Nest Way. So is that, Brian, is that
Yes,
your bailiwick?
the quickest a minor mod has ever been heard. Hello, everyone. For the record, Brian Madden from LEC Environmental. So this project was originally approved in April 2022. No work has yet started, but it basically involved the renovation and relocation of an existing single-family dwelling and some septic upgrades and some restoration activities. If you recall, a portion of the structure is in the dune, and also the velocity zone, land subject to coastal storm flowage. There's a bordering vegetated wetland system on the western portion of the site. And I can pull up, if you like, just a site plan just to refresh everyone's memory and then talk about what the updates are. Hold on a second. Everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So there's actually no proposed changes to the project footprint or any project details. So the plan plan of record that was approved is still what we're working off of it. The minor modification is basically construction methodology aspects, where the new proposed structure within the orange stippled footprint and existing footprint within the darker black. We had originally proposed to renovate that and relocate it in place. We've now have a builder on board and going through the construction methodology. He had suggested revising some of the protocols. Because this structure is partially within the velocity zone in the coastal dune, it is elevated on pile supports. And in order to drive those piles, you need a fair amount of vertical clearance to drill in the piles. And so if we were keeping the structure itself and renovating it, and we would have to relocate it further to the west, so moving it closer towards the vegetated wetland system. If you recall, we are proposing to revegetate this area as buffer zone revegetation area along the back portion of the dune. And this is the proposed footprint in orange here, existing in red. So the fair amount of work would need to be done on the house to get it ready for a move, but it would be relocated back within the lawn area, put up on cribbing, and then allow access from the driveway to drill the piles. So the builder had suggested, in order to save time and minimize disturbance to the site, that the preferred methodology is to raise the structure and rebuild in the proposed footprint. That would save on the order of 2 to 4 months of construction time, thereby minimizing overall disturbance, but also, prevent the structure moving back and sitting on cribbing for an extended period of time, and then doing the work within the footprint to install those helical piles, or actually just pile supports rather. So that is the intent of the minor modification. I'll stop sharing, but it's basically to move from a renovation to a raise and rebuild in order to minimize that disturbance and shorten that construction schedule.
Thank you. So any comments from commissioners? Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And with respect to the applicant, I think the scope of the proposed changes falls outside of the minor modification request. Or at least we need more information before moving forward. To me, this is more like an amended order of conditions request, because we're talking about a structure that, is currently sited in a location that would not meet the performance standards if it was built today. And with the renovation, you're, using that pre-existing structure and renovating in place, but with a raise and rebuild, it's really a completely new structure. So I don't think we have the ability to move forward with the minor mod here. I think the applicant needs to come back with that amended order of conditions, please.
Thank you, Seth. Could I ask if other commission members feel the same way? And I don't know if staff has any thoughts or recommendations as well.
I certainly think Seth has a valid point. And also I was curious as to why the house couldn't be moved in the other direction, but I think Seth is making a good point. So Linda, and then
I don't
Seth.
agree.
I'm sorry, Linda, what did you say?
Did I agree with the presentation? I do not agree with Seth.
And Seth?
Yeah, thank you. And I can talk a little bit more about my justification here. I think that first of all, with the amended order of condition request, it gives the commission the ability to apply additional conditions on the new structure. And we talk, I mean, I hear you theoretically about the ease of access for the build and speeding up the timeline, but we need more details on the construction protocol and the details on the structure itself. I think, typically I've never seen something this extensive fall under a minor mod in my time in the commission. I'll defer to the staff, but it seems outside the scope personally.
Jeff?
So again, just kind of looking at it and reviewing it. I mean, I think we're in a case where, I mean, the application that was applied for was obviously for the renovation of an existing structure with a little bit of modification to where it was sitting on the site. I mean, I think the commission would have to determine that this exceeds what that original scope was enough to essentially require the amended order of conditions, or if the commission feels that it still falls within that original scope of work, is the determination that you guys would be asked to make. I think that's what you guys have in front of you.
Thank you. So Linda and then Mark.
I still think that he's given us what we need.
Thank you. Mark?
Brian, maybe you can help me on the extent of the new building. Are you starting from really the ground up with a whole new building, or will there be some restoration and rebuild, or is there going to be a new building?
Yeah, even with the renovation, it's pretty much a significant effort to get it down to a shell, to even have it able to be moved. Tearing it down methodically and carefully will expedite that construction schedule. And at the end of the day, the project details or elements aren't changing. It's still a pile supported structure in the same footprint. It's just different construction methodology, and we'd certainly be happy to provide a little bit more detail on that front. And we're not objectionable to any direction the commission would like to see here. We're just trying to get this done efficiently and minimize that disturbance, because I think at the end of the day, the longer the construction schedule goes on, the greater potential for potential disturbance to the resource areas could occur.
Thank you, Brian. Mark, an additional question?
Just a follow-up. I'm afraid I'm guilty of not doing a lot of homework on this minor mod. The minor mods we've seen today have been all truly minor. And I think I need a little help on what constitutes a minor versus an amended order. And I think I'd sooner have a chance to look into that in the next couple of weeks before I was ready to say, go for it, or we need an amended order. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I certainly feel that this has gone beyond a minor mod. So I think and thank you, Brian, for fleshing out the construction protocol. And Jeff, unless you think otherwise, I think we would like to have more information, and that it should be I'd ask Brian to consider an amended order rather than a minor mod.
I think if I may, Mr. Chair, we're happy to take it and look, and maybe Brian and I can chat in the interim and figure out the best path forward for the project with what information may be required, and kind of take a look at which filing would be best in the interim between here and the 20th at a minimum.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
We can certainly talk with staff and coordinate. I guess coming out of this meeting, are folks putting aside administrative process, are folks generally on board with the approach of moving to a raise and rebuild situation versus renovate and rebuild? With the caveat that, additional details required, but in concept, are folks, generally on board? So if we do proceed forward, if it ultimately decides to be an amended order, we're not, spinning our wheels unnecessarily. We would appreciate any feedback.
Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I mean, there is the regulatory issue that we've talked about before, that with the raise and rebuild, the ability to apply, the pre-existing use becomes a little bit messier. But from a logistical perspective, I don't have any concern. I think there's the administrative regulatory issue that you've talked about, and then there's a technical issue. On the technical side, I hear what the builder is saying. As long as we get a methodology as to how specifically the demolition is going to happen, what's going to happen with the debris, how they're going to bring the equipment in. I would like to see some architectural plans of the building, if it's any different from the building on site, things like that. Then from a logistics side, I think it's fine, but I guess we'll have to flesh out the regulatory pre-existing use issue as well.
Thank you, Seth. Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a comment for Brian. I mean, just taking the temperature of the room, it sounds like we do want to see the amended order of conditions, but I would be fine with it. But agree with Seth that would like to see some methodology on the building, et cetera, or the process, excuse me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So, Brian, would you like to continue until July 20th?
Yes, please. And thank you all for your feedback.
Thank you.
Take care.
So, moving on to Quinlisk, 88 Quidnet Road.
That minor modification has been withdrawn, so you guys don't need to take any action.
Oh, thank you. So then we have certificates of compliance. 103 Washington Trust, 103 Washington Street.
Sure. So just to kind of walk you guys through this one. So 103 Washington Street was for the construction of some outdoor walk-in coolers and loading docks down at Sales Seafood. If you guys want to see some pictures, I can pop them up there really quick. It's for the construction. Hopefully you guys can see that, of the two walk-ins there that are kind of raised up. And then that being kind of attached to the building. That work has been done in compliance, and we are recommending the issuance of that certificate.
Thank you. So do I hear a support of the recommendation?
I have to recuse from this one. They're clients.
Thank you, Linda. Mike, is that?
Yes, I move that we 103 Washington Street, we go ahead with the certificate of compliance. Motion to go ahead with the certificate of compliance.
Do I hear a second? Mark Beal seconds. So Mark?
Aye.
Seth Engelborg?
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli?
Aye.
Joe Pandowski?
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. 58 Wall Street LLC, 58 Wall Street.
So this is another one. This was for the construction of a dwelling down on Wall Street. Was just in the flood zone and a buffer zone to isolated vegetated wetland. Upon our site inspection, we found it to be in compliance and matching the as-built plan, and recommend that this certificate of compliance can also be issued.
Great. So a move to approve.
Motion to
Joe,
approve.
and
Uh, If I
Seth,
may,
second.
Mr. Chair, if I may issue one question.
Yes, absolutely. Joe, do you mind putting your hand down momentarily?
It's down.
Are there any ongoing conditions with this?
Oh, excuse me, yes, there is. There is ongoing condition 21 for the exterior lighting to be directed away from the isolated vegetated well. Thanks, Seth.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Seth. So, Joe, do you move to approve?
I do.
And Seth, do you move to second?
Yes.
Thank you. So, Mark Beal,
Aye, aye,
Seth Engelberg,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Flandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
I,
Ian Golding, aye. So I don't believe we have any orders of conditions at this
Nope.
juncture.
We do have the one, and I'm happy to share it. We have
Oh.
the one from the windswept bogs that was carried over from last time.
Thank you.
To jog everyone's memory a little bit and to also help jog my memory a little bit. The big question that came up related originally to the delineated resource areas on the site for especially as it related to streams and the central ditch that runs through the bog areas where the state has deemed those to be streams and our local bylaw and regulations do not. So I can put it up for what we did. Hopefully people can see this. Sorry about that for 1 second. Got to do a little adjustment. All right, can everyone kind of see the order?
Yes.
So essentially what we're doing is we're finding that it's an ecological restoration project first. That was the application they applied for. And then we have kind of two sets of findings. I know we talked a lot about last time doing split permits and things. I don't really think it's necessary because I think you can have these sets of findings where the first part is just relative to the State Wetlands Protection Act. So we identified the resource areas on site as bank, bordering vegetated wetland, land underwater, bordering land subject to flooding. And then the follow-up finding that the commission finds that the central drainage and irrigation ditches are streams to delineate portions of the jurisdictional bank, which kind of matches the state recommendation and how they're delineating that. The second part is relative to ours, which reads exactly the same for the first part, and then the second one finds that the central drainage and irrigation ditches are not streams as defined by the town of Nantucket Wetlands bylaw and accompanying regulations. To kind of cover that point, to be clear on what the jurisdictional areas are. So on the standard form that goes with it, we'll have to delineate the difference, and I'm so glad they did a little table of it in their recommendations, that there'll be a local bank and a state bank that will not match in linear footage because we don't have those streams to set off those banks. That would just be essentially land underwater for us to do. I did speak with a few folks about that, including DEP, and everyone seemed to be okay with doing it this way to get that covered and hopefully get that explained. Other than that, I didn't touch the conditions that you guys discussed from last time, but I'm certainly open to any or all suggestions if people would like to have them up or any other changes.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you for sort of digging down in the weeds on that. Commissioners have any further comments? So Mark and then Seth.
Jeff, congratulations on a very Solomon-like decision where you don't cut the baby in half, but you come pretty close. Well done.
Not the first time we've had this come up. So just with streams and central ditches, and I'll stay away from editorializing that. I may not agree with the state with those being streams, but that's their prerogative and that's what they're going to do.
Thank you.
Seth?
Thank you. Just related to number 21, which talks about the monitoring. So we were going through a period where we were a little bit more specific in the monitoring requirements, and now it seems like we're back to kind of vague. So I know we had asked for specific things to be included in monitoring, like photos and, other things. And then I know at one point the staff had wanted monitoring reports to be filed by specific dates to kind of like aid in their review. And I think we should put these back in to make it easier.
So let's see if we change 21, essentially monitor reports, which include photographs depicting the site as a whole, filed annually. On or before, I think December 1st is fair for kind of an end of season right up. Or December 31st, we could do at the end of the year. Any thoughts?
Whatever you think, you're the one who's getting them.
Let's go December 1st. I do like dates there because that gives us a little bit more of a, hey, your report's not in, you need to send it in, not a, we're working on it, we'll get it. So is
Thank
that
you, Jeff.
better for everyone?
Would someone like to move to approve as amended? Joe, moved to approve, and Mark seconded, so by roll call vote. Mark Beal,
Aye.
Seth Engelborg,
Hi.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. So that moves us on to extensions of orders, and there are none. So that brings us to other business and monitoring reports. Jeff?
No monitoring reports for today.
Then the second item on other business is the 2 Gully Road press release discussion.
So again, I'm playing a little bit of catch up with all of this too. It seemed like you guys had a discussion last time and some revisions had been made. To that. Again, I hadn't necessarily gotten to it the whole way. Did you guys have an intent to try to issue that this evening, or did you want to wait for further review, or were you guys hoping to have further discussion about that?
So Joe?
I thought it might be released by this time. It's at least a month old, this piece of paper that we've been circulating. And I know I did a minor rewrite of it. And I haven't seen anything to take a look at. Is it complete, Jeff?
Yeah, I keep saying this. I'll have to take a look at where it was in that process. Again, I was trying to prioritize getting through all of the filings for tonight, and then everyone continued. So I'll check back through our notes, but I feel like you guys had made those final revisions, and we'll make sure that it got sent out to the appropriate press outlets if that was the case.
So Mike, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike, Will's obviously out of the office, but going back on that discussion, Seth had made some good points about, people taking note going forward. So with that type of work. So my suggestion is we wait for either Will to get back into the office or Jeff to get a chance to work on it a little further before we release it, because we just haven't really completed since the last discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And I agree with Mike. So Joe, I understand where you're coming from. But under the circumstances, I think we want to make sure that it really covers everything that we want to say. So if you don't object, I think we should hopefully have a final version available at our next meeting.
Yeah, I just I'll just resend it around for everyone to make sure that we're 100% there.
Great, thank you. And then the next item is the enforcement actions on 4 Harbor Square.
All right. So it's a little bit outstanding. We had a little notice issue for the last meeting, I know, where it didn't get on the agenda correctly. So we do have, if you guys hopefully saw it, there was a supplemental letter that came in from Katie Barnacle, who I thought was going to be on. I don't see her, but Rick's here. So she sent in, and in there, they kind of detailed that was there. They provided a copy of their certificate of appropriateness from the HDC. And then they provided the plan set that went with the certificate of appropriateness from the HDC. So hopefully everyone got a chance to review it. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts or questions that you might be able to ask, or if obviously if the permit holder has anything they want to add to that, they certainly can. Or you guys can discuss it and decide if there's further action that you feel is needed, or any other further information to decide what action will be appropriate to move forward.
Any observations for commissioners to make on this?
Commissioners don't have any thing further to say themselves.
Excuse me, just a second, excuse me. If I may, do any commissioners have anything further to observe? And if not, Danielle, would you please identify yourself for the record?
This is Danielle De Benedictis, and I represent the abutter, Charles Johnson.
Thank you.
Okay.
Please, do you have something to say?
Yes.
Yes. Please
It's
go
our
ahead.
position that it's our position that the applicant should be required to file for an amended order of condition for the additional architectural elements, the deck, the HVAC, and the cooler, which comprise an area of density that is far in excess of the original fish tank, and constitute in effect the size of a 1-car garage, and are 2.5 stories. We've submitted pictures that show how they built this huge structure in land that's subject to the coastal storm flowage resource area without plans as part of the application. And in doing that, they've skirted the process required by the Wetland Protection Act and local regulations. That this original order of conditions was based on no expansion of the footprint. There's clearly been an expansion of the footprint, and as such a minor modification is inappropriate. This 2-story height goes way beyond the 10 by 10 that originally existed, and that 10 by 10 was certainly not 3-dimensional. You can't compare a fish tank in the water to this huge structure that's now been built, that's going to cause a lot of noise and noxious odors. The entire process that would ordinarily take place in land subject to coastal storm flowage and that's required by the Wetland Protection Act would be skirted if we allow this to go forward as a minor modification. And as such, I believe that you should require them to file an amended order of condition. They haven't even shown a plan yet as to what originally existed there, even though they promised you at the last couple of hearings they would.
Thank you. Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So our regulatory authority, the Wetlands Protection Act, and the Nantucket Local Wetlands Regulation, the jurisdiction is over wetlands. It's not over the air above wetlands. We see this all the time where people have decks that are hanging over a buffer zone, that are cantilevered or some other structure that is connected to a building outside of a resource area or buffer zone, but extends over that resource area in the air only, we don't have jurisdiction over that. So on the plan, which is a 2D rendering of a pad, yes, albeit it didn't show that deck, but in the filings to the HGC, it clearly did. It does seem like there was a problem with one support post being outside of the area where it's supposed to be. But in the letter submitted to the commission, it seems like that is or will be remediated. So in that case, I don't see what the issue with the deck is. It's sort of outside our jurisdiction at this point, as long as the pad underneath the deck is to the spec of our plans. That's the authority we have at this commission. Thank you.
The pad underneath the deck, you have no evidence before you that is compatible with the original fish tank. And you required them to come up with a plan that showed the dimensions of the original fish tank. And they still haven't come up with a plan. They haven't even done what you asked them to do at the last hearing. And I might also say in response to what you've just said, that the structure is attached to the wetlands. The structure is attached to the water. They testified that they dug into the water.
Thank you, Danielle. Seth, do you have a response to that before I go to Linda Williams?
Yes.
The commissioners?
Yes,
Before-
quickly, the part of the structure that I'm specifically referring to is that, second story deck that's above the pad. Obviously, the structure itself is within resource areas, land subject to coastal storm flowage, and the buffer zone to coastal bank. That is well known. But the second story deck that is the topic of this conversation here tonight is not within our jurisdiction. And I'll have staff back me up on that, but we don't regulate the air. We regulate the wetlands, not the air above wetlands.
Thank you, Seth. Linda?
We already heard the issue with the pad, I guess maybe 6 weeks ago, and we dispensed with that. I don't want to really go back to the pad, and I agree with Seth on the no jurisdiction over what is above the air or in the air, actually 10 feet in the air. And I think where the disconnect occurred is that the HDC approved plans didn't get into our file to indicate what exactly is in a 3D mode, since all we saw was the site plan. So I have no issue with this.
Thank you, Linda. Rick
Mr.
Bodett?
Chair.
Yes, Sarah, Rick.
Well,
has-
I'll defer to Rick. I can't figure out how to put my hand up. So when it's appropriate, if you would recognize me, I'd appreciate it.
Of course. And
Thank.
Rick, do you mind if would you like Sarah to go first since she had these problems? Or-
Yeah, Sarah can go ahead. That's
Okay.
fine with me. It doesn't
Okay.
matter to me. Mr. Chair.
Sarah, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. As you know, I represent the Old North Fourth Cooperative. I'm confused because I've always been under the impression that the commission considered cantilevered structures over wetlands to be within their jurisdiction. And then tonight, I hear you saying that they're not. The other thing I'm confused about is earlier in this meeting with Mr. Madden, where a structure was completely demolished and then rebuilt, you said it wasn't appropriate, or it might not be, wasn't appropriate for a minor mod, but required an amended order. And yet here, the structure was completely taken down to the studs. No appropriate site plan has ever been provided. And yet you're willing to say that he doesn't have to come in with an amended order. I also want to mention that this project is in the buffer zone to a coastal bank, and as such, it is within your jurisdiction. And the supported second story deck has always counted as a structural element in the buffer zone. So I don't think that this project should be treated differently than other projects that come before this commission. I know you're sympathetic to the plight of the applicant, but they really need to do this the right way. And I don't understand why the rules are constantly being pretzeled for this particular applicant. And I think what should happen here is they should file for an amended order, and you should get a proper engineered site plan. I don't think you should be relying on the HTC plans. You don't normally do that. I think there should be an engineered plan, and you should have before and after so you can see exactly what has happened and what the impact on that buffer zone to the coastal bank and the land subject to coastal storm flowage will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Rick Bodett?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Rick Bodett for the property owner, Nantucket Island Resorts. Paul Santos is on as well. Just to answer Jeff's question, Katie Barnacle is on vacation this week, so lucky for her. And unfortunately for you, you get me. But in any event, you know, as Jeff said, this enforcement order stems from the existence of this deck, as Seth mentioned, which is about 10 feet above the ground. And as you might remember from all of our discussions earlier this spring, there is a 10 by 10 concrete pad that was part of the structure previously. We are renovating the structure as we told the commission originally in the application for the order of conditions, as well as in our letter to the commission thereafter. And we've relied on that order of conditions for a year and a half. This is being built. There is a deck above the concrete pad, which has a proposed cooler on top of it, which we all discussed this spring as well. The deck is 10 by 15, not by 10 by 10. And we did submit a letter, Katie submitted a letter, and the purpose was twofold. One, to submit the HCC plans, not so that it takes the place of a site plan, which by the way, you have from Paul Santos, there is a site plan, and there is no proposed change to the footprint of the structure that's there. There was previously a roof over this concrete pad. So the first reason was to show you that, look, we submitted those HCC plans in December 2021, the same time we submitted this application to the commission. And so there isn't a hidden deck here. We're not trying to do anything without permits. It was always proposed. It's unfortunate that, you know, we didn't just show that deck on the original plan, site plan we showed you, but I think one hand didn't talk to the other, and that's what happened. The second purpose of the letter is to give you guys a course of action of what we want to do. Currently, there is a post supporting this deck that's above a concrete pad. That post is certainly within your jurisdiction. And I think the construction personnel didn't realize it was outside the pad. So our solution to that, as proposed in the letter, is to remove that post because that is within land subject to coastal storm flowage, and cantilever it onto the existing post that will be within the pad. That's it. That's our solution. I suppose we, maybe would have to come in for a minor mod if we wanted to keep that post, but it's not that important to us. And I agree with Seth that the deck is not within your jurisdiction. It's 10 feet above grade. And in terms of the buffer zone, I mean, buffers go horizontally, not vertically. So I don't agree that the actual deck is within the jurisdiction. So anyway, that's our solution. We'd like to just put that in place and be done with it and move forward. And we hope you'll support that effort. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, Rick.
If I could be heard again, Ian?
Yes, Danielle, but if you would please wait for Mike and Seth, who had their hands up.
Okay, I couldn't see who had their hands up, sorry.
No, not at all. So, Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to comment and go back to, staff originally made the recommendation to move forward here, and I don't want to go too far backwards, but I'm still supporting that original recommendations that they made, and I don't think we need to do an amended order of conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question to the staff. Is there existing enforcement order on this property?
I think we had sent them a letter to come in and resolve that issue. I'm pulling up my notes as we speak. I do have the original plans from the original 2021 filing, if that is helpful.
Yeah, if I may, where I'm getting at is, so in the case of a project that is, technically not in compliance with its permit, I hear what Sarah Alger is saying, but there are several ways for an applicant to actually get to compliance. And it really seems like the crux of the issue here is that the plan of record might not be exactly up to snuff to what's happening on the ground. And if there's already an existing enforcement order on the property, they certainly could go through the amended order of conditions request, but we could just compel them through the enforcement order process to submit the plans that are up to date with the most recent methodology. And then we would deal with the issue all at once. So I would recommend we just do that. And then we'd have all the plans that we need. We'd have, an ability that if the plans seemed drastically different than what they're saying, to keep that enforcement order open and compel additional action in the future. But if the plans match up with the narrative, then we can just move forward with the project through the enforcement process. Does that sound reasonable, Jeff?
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Oh, absolutely, Jeff.
Sure. I think Seth is on a good track there. I think, even kind of looking at the plans back from 2021, I think the easiest first step to resolve this once and for all, and to stop dragging all of us to these meetings over and over again, is if there was a simple site plan that was put forward that showed resource areas, buffer zones, previous conditions, and what final conditions are proposed to be with those resource areas and buffer zones intact for that final proposal. I think that would make for a very clear evaluation of whether or not further action is needed. I apologize for not hopefully coming up with that or Seth sharing that before, but I think that would definitively end where everything is buffer zone wise and where it all falls. And if any further action is needed.
Thank you, Jeff. Seth, do you have any further comment?
Yeah, just quickly, thank you, Jeff. And you said it, what I was trying to communicate better. And I just want to communicate to all the commissioners and all the members of the public that given where we are in the process, we have the ability to compel future action if future action is needed because the enforcement is current. So, if the plan doesn't match up with what they're saying, then we'll move forward. Hopefully that's not the case, but I think we could just wait and see once we have the comprehensive plans that Jeff are talking about at the office. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. And I must say that seems eminently reasonable, but Danielle, do you have further comments?
Well, I was only going to say that the plan that's presently submitted is like a condo site plan. It doesn't show any depth. And so now if you're talking about getting a better plan, I certainly applaud that, a plan that is appropriate. But what I would say about this approach is that it completely skirts the public's rights to comment in review. And, and then they're getting away without going through the normal application process that everybody else, even the prior applicant today, was required to file for a modification. And it just doesn't, as I applaud what Sarah said, this is not the way things are normally handled. And I want to get back to the original order of conditions that you issued. That was based on a building permit application that said they were going to do a minor repair of a retail fish store for $7,900. So that order of conditions could never apply to what they built. We weren't even aware of what they were going to build. It was misrepresented that they were going to build repair for $7,900, the original fish market. Then they made $1,275,000 of repairs, took them a year to do that. And then they come back in and say, oh, well, we made $1,275,000 of worth of repairs, and we're now going to make it into a restaurant. So I don't see how that original order of conditions that you issued doesn't have to be amended.
Thank you, Danielle. Michael?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Mr. Chair, for Jeff, I'm just unclear if we ever officially sent out the enforcement order, or was it handled internally within the office to say, come in and present us some information?
So we had initiated that process and then had kind of an immediate response to delay the sending of that enforcement action out because they responded quickly. And I think we've been, kind of working through that process, but that certainly doesn't at any point, the commission can feel compelled to issue an enforcement if they feel that something is out of compliance or necessary, or aren't getting the response or action necessary from any applicant. I would say in this case and others, we've seen response to the commission in a positive manner to move through situations of potential non-compliance or potential enforcement are usually, resolved with discussions like this and actions taken by people willing to take those actions. And that's always a better way. And we always have enforcement to rely on if that action's not taking place. But I do feel like all parties involved here have been involved, whether they're for the project or against the project, and the dialogue with the commission is appropriate and moving through. And I think honestly that last kind of piece of information with the two plans together would go a long way to finalize this once and for all.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, before you move on.
Yes, Sarah?
I just want 2 points of clarification. First, in the absence of the enforcement order, are you going to do you have the ability to require a plan that shows the site conditions, elevations, and resource areas? That's point number one. And then point number two, I would love staff to clarify this cantilever situation, because if you don't think that cantilever structures are within your jurisdiction, I think you should prepare to see a lot of cantilever structures.
Thank you, Sarah. Jeff, would you like to reply?
Was that
Sorry to interrupt, but somebody needs to mute there's a terrible feedback coming through. Pardon my interruption.
Point taken. Jeff?
Oh, no, so is that better for everybody? We're still getting that feedback? All right, I think that's better. So the cantilever thing has been a question for a long time, and it's come up, and I think it sounds like we'll have a little bit of time to deal with it. Historically, what we've seen, just without naming addresses, is cantilever decks on existing structures are something that have been permitted over time, but are still required under permit because it's still within the buffer zone. I know we've seen some decks that have come in before that end up being part, it's an existing structure with a second floor deck where we've still had, waivers involved for setback requirements and things where cantilever decks have been the option of least impact. But I think we could pull together some examples of how those have been treated in the past. And before, and again, I think what's important with this is, if you're dealing with the performance standards for two separate resource areas, right, is the performance standards for the flood zone for a cantilever deck that's elevated that high may not be relevant because it's located outside of the flood zone. So it wouldn't be within that resource area physically, because if that flood zone was at elevation 8 and then the lowest structural element of that deck was at elevation 14%, it's outside of the flood zone and there's nothing in between it relative to that deck to be in there. It's still maybe within the setback to the buffer zone of the coastal bank. And I think that's why that plan that shows that clearly would go a long way to resolve that as an issue for where it would be, because then you would still have to look at it for how it may impact that coastal bank's ability to function. Given the fact that the coastal bank's a man-made coastal bank, I think my initial staff impression would be that it would not have any impact or not impact the performance standards. But I think that's easy enough determination to make with that plan. And like I said, I don't think the flood zone is relevant to the elevated deck, just for the fact that it's outside of it without question. But I think making sure we have a complete information set would be critical to that. And I think that can easily be had.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, may I be heard?
Actually, Ms. Manning, Rick Bodett had his hand up first.
I'm sorry, I can't raise my hand, so I apologize.
Oh, not at all. But if you'd wait, please, until Rick has spoken.
Of course.
Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a couple of things to hopefully help clarify and ask for a little more clarification, I guess. In terms of the enforcement action, I can confirm this tomorrow, but I am pretty sure it went out. I think it is. I think it was received by NIR in Boston after we were supposed to have the hearing last week, but I think it actually did go out. Just so everyone knows, and just to answer Sarah's question, if I'm wrong about that, I'll let everyone know. And if I'm wrong about that, obviously we have no problem voluntarily giving the commission sets of proper plans if that's what you want. So, but just to clarify, maybe Seth and Jeff can give me a little more direction. Obviously, the pre-construction plan is easy enough. Do you, in terms of our proposed solution to this enforcement order, would you like to see a plan of everything that you've discussed that shows our solution, or as it sits today with the post, or both? I suppose we could show all three.
Yes, thank you, Rick. Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And in response to Mr. Bodett's question, all three would be good. The historic conditions, including, the previous building, the wetland setbacks, then the conditions on site today with all those same setbacks, and then the proposed final construction conditions with all those same setbacks, please.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you.
So, Ms. Manning, do you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. I'm also here for Charles Johnson. A couple months ago, I was the attorney who spoke regarding the drawings that had been submitted. And in that hearing, I raised the fact that the structure that was being built was about 50% bigger than the 10 by 10 footprint. And I was challenged about that by the counsel for the fish market, Straight Wharf Fish Market. And it was suggested that I did not know how to read plans. And I think that what I'm trying to illustrate here is the importance of having these sorts of discussions aired out in public. I think that the plans, as suggested, again, I agree with my sister Danielle that they should be that applaud that they're being done in the manner in which it's been suggested. But I would suggest that they should be done and reviewed at a hearing where the public can weigh in and see the plans go up on the screen and be assured that the Concom is watching out for the wetlands and its jurisdiction, and make comments, even if they're incorrect, about what the plans say and what they should say. So I'm of a mind that, and suggest strongly that whatever reviews are being done are not done privately in offices and in the records room, but here in public on Zoom or however else you hold your hearing, and that we all be able to see these plans and be comfortable with them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. And I think that's exactly the point that is being made, that all three sets of plans are going to be presented to the public at either the next meeting or a future meeting in a month.
Very good. We do have some feedback here, so I apologize if I misheard. Thank you very much.
Not at all. So I don't think there's anything further to add unless either commissioners or members of the public want to weigh in further. So going forward, we have other business enforcement actions, potential enforcement actions. Jeff?
I think we covered the main one tonight already, where we were talking about 79 Baxter Road. Again, I apologize for getting to that a little slowly. We're trying to work through and get caught up. So we'll have that a little bit more, but other than that, we don't have any right at the moment that we have prepared for you tonight.
Thank you. For reports from CRAC, I have nothing to report because I've been absent. CPC, Mark?
Nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
NP and EDC, Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Open Space and Recreation Plan, which was created by NP and EDC, actually on the Concom's behalf. The authority to create that plan originally lied with the Concom, but now has been done on Nantucket by the NP and EDC. After many rounds of back and forth with the select board, was finally approved. And that will allow our town and region to better plan for open space projects, and also to receive critical infrastructure funding, grant funding at a state and federal level. So this is a big deal for Nantucket. Thank you everyone who commented and supported that, and we will keep you updated with next steps once the planning process gets underway.
Great, thank you. The harbor plan, Linda?
Actually, there is something on CPC to report because I'm acting chair at the moment. Our annual meeting, which everybody's invited to, is on July 18th at 10 o'clock. It's Zoom and in person. I believe we have that posted up there. We have some of the past recipients coming to give their presentation as to how we benefited them, and take comments or questions from the audience who might like to file for a grant from the CPC. As far as the harbor plan, we met today and went over the survey, which we're going to put out blanket the island with. And we've made some changes to it. And I just a few minutes ago, I got a revised survey back. And we're going to try to get the word out to all the area, like the Brant Point Association and the Surfside Association, all these other venues. And we'll have another public meeting in August. So we're rolling along. As far as I know, Jeff, we're still waiting for the state to approve the delineation, the changes in the map. I haven't seen that come back yet. Is that correct, Jeff?
Yeah, we have the notice to proceed in. There's a public comment window on that notice to proceed, so they won't issue that final notice until that's passed and that comment window is still running. So we have another week or so before that ends. But I haven't heard any
And then we can go
negative
ahead.
feedback from them, so it should be well on its way.
Right, and then we can go ahead and start really getting into the guts of the several pages of things we have to revise and update, especially considering the coastal resiliency stuff that wasn't present in 2009 when we did the second draft of the harbor plan. So we're moving along. Got a very dedicated group. Seth's on it also.
Thank you, Linda. The offshore wind and
Thing to report,
nothing to report.
you know.
So, thank you, Joe. And then commissioners' comments. And Mike,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, just an apology to the commission that I had to use my phone. Probably was making everybody nauseous, but the office got a lightning zap, and I think I just found out my camera is not working on that. But I just did want to say for our outgoing chair woman, how much we appreciated Ashley, how she ran the meeting. Congratulations to you, Ian. We've got some big shoes to fill there. I'm sure you agree, but
I do.
I want to thank her, publicly, and which I think everybody's probably sent her an email or something by now, but for her dedication to the commission and what a great job she did. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. And I totally agree with you, as I'm sure all our fellow commissioners do. And Seth?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, question. Are we doing the committee appointments or are we waiting until Tim Brain is here?
My personal inclination is to wait until Tim Brain is present to include all commissioners unless people feel otherwise.
I support that, but I know sometimes some of the commissions get mad if we don't appoint people. So Jeff, do you have any comments as a staff?
I think we can go either way. I'm happy to stall them off, and whoever was serving on that committee can stay on until that's there. Ashley wasn't on any committees, so we can kind of just hold the course, and if you guys want, until everyone's back.
Great. Yeah, I'm fine with doing that. And then
Great.
if I may make a comment.
Of course.
So first is welcome Tim Brain to the commission. I look forward to serving with you. Also, I know he's not here, but I'm sure he'll watch it. Also, as Mike said, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to our former chair, Ashley Erisman, for her many years of service and for leading us in a very effective way and being a role model. I thank you all for your support of my candidacy as vice chair, and I hope to, live up to that role. And I wish you the best, Ian, in your role as the new chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Seth. And I think very well said about Ashley. And a remarkable individual and did a remarkable job. And I miss her because it's on the commission. Linda?
I emailed back and forth with Ashley on our own, but I would like to do something more formal from the Concom to Ashley. Now, whether that's in the form of a card that we all go into the office to sign with our own notes on it, but I'd like to send her a formal letter how much we appreciated her service, et cetera, that maybe I'll draft or Jeff can draft or you can draft it, Ian, but I'd like to say something more formal so she has it.
I think that's a laudable suggestion, Linda, and so perhaps we can all put our heads together on that. And Jeff, yes?
Sure, I'm happy to draft something like that up or kind of kick around. I might even throw it out to our Cape and Islands Conservation Agent Network to see if other commissions around the Cape have done something similar, and if they have any interesting or cool suggestions to do.
Great, thank you. And Joe?
Yeah, one thing we don't want to lose is the updated regulations. We had several dates that were picked and no one has talked about that at this meeting, but we should get that back on the agenda.
That's a very good point. And Jeff, so hopefully as you get everything sorted out until Will returns, hopefully.
Yeah,
we'll
I'll
be
add
able
that.
to go
I'll
forward.
add that to our next agenda.
Great, thank you. And do you have any administrator or staff reports to add?
I just was gonna throw in on the end here and say is I'll be back with the commission for a while at meetings and just hope everyone can respect Will's privacy and we'll be back with us hopefully as soon as possible. But if people have stuff for the commission to please just send them to me and like I said, I'll be back at meetings full time here for the foreseeable future. So you guys thought you were free with me and I'll be back. So we'll move through it all together. And I promise I'll be more caught up for the next meeting than I was for today. So we'll be back at full speed.
Well, it's great to have you with us, but I'm sure it's actually the opposite. You thought you were free of us.
Yeah, I'm never really free. I still gotta look at stuff from time to time, but we'll see. It's nice to be back a little bit too. And I'm glad that it wasn't a 5-hour meeting. So I am going to say that was just solely from my presence and not the 13 continuances on the agenda tonight. So I'm taking credit.
Thank you.
That's
Jeff.
it for me.
So on that note, would someone move to adjourn? Joe? And seconded by Mark. So by roll call vote, Mark Beal.
Prepare yourself for July 20. It's going to be a whopper. Aye.
Seth Engelberg,
Aye.
Mike Mazzarelli,
Aye.
Joe Plandowski,
Aye.
Linda Williams,
Aye.
Ian Golding, aye. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you,
see you
Ian,
in
from
2
all the way
weeks.
from Scotland. Well done.
Good
Thank you.
night.
Thank you. Good night, everybody.